We never know where life is going to take us. We never know who we're going to meet, what experiences we're going to have, or what opportunities will open up for us. But one thing that we can be sure of is that all of it is part of God's divine plan for our lives. Nothing that happens to us happens by coincidence. Things just don't happen to us. I personally believe that everything that happens to us is purposeful. There's a meaning behind it. There's a reason for it. And this past weekend, that was reconfirmed for me in my strategic visioning board workshop by way of the magic that was in the room, that was being contributed by the attendees and the participants. And it just reminded me how close we all really are to one another. And so when I come back, I will be sharing with you some of the highlights from this past weekend's workshop. And I will also be joined by my good friend A.R. Garcia, and he will be talking about his upcoming off-Broadway play, She Hates Coffee. So sit tight, go get your favorite beverage, and meet me after the break. You are tuned in to the Empowerment Hour podcast, your digital global classroom where individuals across all ages, backgrounds, and career levels tune in for guidance and motivation to live life on their own terms. It's where inspiring thought leaders, modern-day influencers, and social game changers come to discuss their own personal journeys and have real conversations about the journey to success. I am your host, Nancy Ruffin, and every week I bring you raw and unfiltered conversations about the obstacles we all encounter, the times we felt like giving up, and the things that keep us forging forward. It's where passion and purpose intersect. So if you're ready to start living on purpose, then you're in the right place. Let's get started. Welcome back, my loves, to another episode of the Empowerment Hour podcast. It feels so good to be back. It's a new week, and this is the third episode of this new year. I'm excited about how this year has kicked off for me so far. Talk about being busy booked and blessed. Your girl's schedule is bananas. Like I said, it's only been the third week of the new year, and I've been blessed with work, and it's not a complaint, just an observation that when you ask and you put something out into the universe, it gives you exactly what you asked for. And so I am starting this year exactly how I wanted to, just being able to share my gifts by way of this podcast, my workshops. I've already started working and collaborating with a few people that I want to build with. I'm thinking about different streams of revenue and how I can earn income by different channels, and using my gifts, my many gifts and talents to make money for me. And this is something I want you guys to start thinking about for yourselves. No matter where you are on your own personal growth journey, I want you to start thinking about the many ways you can monetize and earn money by using your skills, whatever they may be. And we all have a skill, and our time is valuable, and I want you guys to start thinking in those terms. I want you to stop giving away your time, your services, the information that you have in your mind, right? All of that required a certain amount of investment from you to gain and attain, right? And so I want you to start looking at yourself as someone who is worthy to receive payment for whatever value you're providing to someone else or to someone else's business. And the reason that I say that is because you wouldn't show up every day to work for free, right? There's a contract. You provide them with a certain skill, right? And they in turn pay you either an hourly rate or a bi-weekly salary or an annual salary. But your time has a monetary value to it, and you get paid for your time every single day. You wake up and you go to work and you provide them with the skills and talents that only you can provide them with. And so I want you to start applying that same kind of thinking to other talents and gifts that you have. Even the talent and gift that you apply on your day job, at your day-to-day career, right? There's something of benefit there. How can you take those skills and apply them in other areas of your life that would be of value to someone else? Take me, for example, at work, my day job, a lot of what I do centers on transformation, on improving processes, on helping individuals and certain departments identify the areas within themselves that they can improve upon, helping them identify areas where they're wasting some of their efforts and helping them identify the specific things that they could begin to eliminate from their day-to-day activities that are not contributing to the growth of their department or the growth of the business or the growth of themselves. And so I've taken those skills that I apply on my day job and I use them, the very same skills, when I'm facilitating my workshops, when I'm doing my one-on-one coaching, right? All of it is centered on transformation, on self-improvement, on being able to manage your time better, on setting goals, identifying what your priorities are, on creating a game plan, a step-by-step action plan on how you're going to achieve those goals. So these are all things that I do in my day job. I've just managed to take what I get paid to do and transfer that into work that I love to do, right? And I love to work with people. I love to help people discover their purpose and figure out what it is that they're passionate about and help them create a game plan that centers on doing exactly that. So whatever that skill is for you, whatever it is that you're really great at, whatever it is that you're getting paid to do at work, how can you take some of those skills and parlay that into a separate business or a second stream of revenue for you? That's going to be your homework for this week. But I really wanted to kind of just recap and highlight the vision board workshop that I had this past weekend. I do a lot of workshops. I've had hundreds of them. I've worked with hundreds of women. And this weekend's workshop was unlike any other. The energy was different, and I don't know if it's because almost every single person that was in the room was brand new. These were individuals that I hadn't met before in person. I had never shared space with them before, and so it was all just really new and refreshing for all of us. I would say that out of the many people that were there this weekend, there were 3 or maybe 4 that I had met previously. But everyone else was completely brand new, and it just shifted the energy in the room. The dynamic was different. It was like many of my other workshops where we entered as strangers and, they left as friends, and there was a bond that was formed. Many of them shared personal things that they hadn't shared or didn't think that they would feel comfortable in sharing in a room full of strangers. But something happens in these workshops, and I can only use the word magic to describe it because that's really what it is. It's not anything. I don't believe it's anything that I do specifically. I just really allow the Spirit of God to guide my words and the message that I give off, on that day. It's what I always ask for in my prayer before I start any event or any workshop. I always just ask God to use me as the vessel to convey whatever message He feels my attendees need to hear that day. And so I always kind of just go with that. I always have, my agenda and the bullet point of items that I want to get through and discuss and review. But a lot of times I have that as a guide, but I really just go off of the energy in the room, and I really let God just guide my message and my thoughts. And this past weekend, that's exactly what happened. I wasn't even able to review all of the things that I had wanted to do in that workshop because I felt that the energy was such that they really needed to talk and connect with one another and hear each other's stories. And so we spent a lot of time just talking and doing introductions and really getting to understand each other and what we each were seeking from the workshop. I then had them write a letter of intention to themselves because I needed them to get to a space where they were clear on what they wanted this year to be like for them. And the best way to do that is to write a letter to yourself as if it is the end of the year and you're reflecting back and you're acknowledging every great thing that has happened to you throughout the year. And when you do that, what you're doing is you're pretty much setting the tone for the year. You're saying, these are all of the things that I want to manifest this year. And then I have them work backwards. I have them create goals and set goals and create a game plan based on what they have outlined and identified in their letter of intention. And in that way, they can select really clear and specific goals that are going to be aligned with the vision that they have for themselves at the end of the year. And that exercise was really powerful. It's something that I haven't always done in my workshops. It was the first time I've done it in a really long time. And I think that it's something I'm going to incorporate more of because it really helps the attendees get a clearer picture of what they want to manifest. And it was amazing. If you just go on my social media feeds, you can see all of the amazing connections that were made, the testimonies from just being in the room together and being able to share and bond and connect in that way. It was exciting. I'm looking to plan another workshop for sometime in February by popular demand, of course. I've been getting tons of messages asking, when's the next workshop, that they couldn't attend any of the past two because they were sold out. So I'm working on that within the next couple of weeks. And so I would encourage you all, if you missed out on the first two and would like to attend the next one that I'm having in February, please subscribe to my mailing list because I always send out the ticket links to my mailing list first. This is why my events are always sold out, because my mailing list has first dibs. They buy the tickets, and by the time I put it out to the general public, there's probably 2 or 3 tickets left, and then it's not enough, for everyone who is interested that wants to attend. So if you haven't already subscribed to my mailing list, head over to my website, www.iamnancyruffin.com, and just subscribe. Get yourself on the mailing list, and you will always be the first to know when I have an upcoming workshop, an event, or anything special that's going on. Now that we got all of that stuff out of the way, just a couple of reminders for those of you who are my loyal listeners and really enjoy the podcast and you get value from the things that we share here this week and every week. If you haven't already done so, then I am humbly asking that you kindly leave us a rating, a message, a comment, a review on Apple Podcasts, if that's how you're listening. It really helps with visibility and really getting my podcast seen by other listeners. And in that way, we can grow the listenership of the show. If you listen on any other platform, on Spotify, on iHeartRadio, or even on the internet, they also give you the option to rate and leave a review and all of that stuff. So please, if it's not too much to ask, 1 to 2 sentences is fine. 5-star rating, if you love us, is great. And if you have any feedback for me, or if you have any questions or any topics that you want me to address on this show that I haven't already addressed, feel free to shoot me an email at info@nancyarroyoruffin.com, or you can always just shoot me a private message either on Facebook or on Instagram. And so without any further ado, I want to get right into this week's interview. My guest is actor, playwright, producer A.R. Garcia. He is a personal friend of mine who I have known for a number of years. We have supported each other and each other's endeavors since we've met. And he is someone whose work I think is absolutely phenomenal. I attended one of his plays a few years ago, and I would tell you that it was an incredible piece of art. And he is joining me this week on the podcast to promote his upcoming play, She Hates Coffee. This is its second run. It had a sold-out run out in New Jersey a couple of months back, and because it was so successful, he decided to do a New York run. And so the first stop is at Brooklyn, or in Brooklyn, on February 8th, 9th, and 10th. And A.R. writes a lot about love and relationships from a male perspective, which I personally feel that is really refreshing, because a lot of the love stories that we tend to hear and see always or mostly come from the woman's perspective. And so being able to gain insight on how a man feels and how he views love and relationships is always great. So without any further ado, here is my interview with my friend A.R. Garcia. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Empowerment Hour podcast. It's your girl, Nancy Ruffin, and this week I'm excited because joining me on this episode is a personal friend of mine who is someone that I have an immense respect and admiration for. He is super talented in so many different avenues, and I invited him to be on tonight because he has a new production coming out in February. And I really wanted to put him out there to kind of let you guys know that this is what's happening. And if you're looking for anything to do around the Valentine's Day week, this is where you need to be at. So without any further ado, I want to welcome as my guest this week, Mr. A.R. Garcia. Hey, A.R.
What's up? Damn, that was one hell of an introduction.
I'm saying it's all true though, right? Like, we're going to get into a lot of your background and into all of the stuff that you have done, thus far. And but before we get into that, just let my audience know, who is A.R. Garcia? Like, how can people know about the man, the artist? Just give them a brief summary about who you are, what you do.
Well, I'm a writer and I am an actor. I'm also a producer. I've been writing since I was, a young man, and I took it out on faith to do this as a career a few years ago. And I just started blogging, and then that led to kind of writing for men's magazines and advertising, and really wanted to do theater and film. And so that's what I transitioned into theater. But I am a playwright, and I am a screenwriter, and I am a writer, period. I'm just a lover of the arts and all that is storytelling. Um, I am a reader. I am a father. I am a hard worker, and I am Latino
Yeah.
above all else. I'm a son,
Amen. I
you
mean,
know,
nothing wrong with our, non-people of color, but
nothing.
I'm biased because I'm Latina. So
We're a little biased, but, you know, it is what it is. I'm Dominican. My parents are from the Dominican Republic, and I rep that. I rep
you
that whenever I can.
And I want to talk a little bit about that because, as someone who has been following your work for years, I had an opportunity to see one of your productions, The Broken Bachelor, and for
Yes.
me, it was a phenomenal one-man show.
Oh my God, thank you.
It was amazing, and the way that you were able to bring life to every single character in their authentic way and in their authentic voice. And one of the characters that stood out so vividly to me in that production was the character of your mom.
Oh
And
yeah.
and I think, and so was The Broken Bachelor semi-autobiographical?
It was semi
Or did you take was it
autobiographical.
like a mixture? Because we know that a lot of times art imitates life, and we either take
Yeah.
from our own lives or from the lives of like our friends or the people around us, and then we kind of create something new. So like, what was that? Was The Broken Bachelor that, or was it really related to your life?
No, what I wanted to do with that show um, was I wanted to highlight that men could be broken as well.
Mm.
But the conversation, like, that's not just a convo that dudes have, right? Like, I can't go up to another guy and be like, "Hey, do you feel broken?" He'd be like, "Bro, get out of here with that." You know what I'm saying?
But why do you think that is? Why is it?
Because,
Because women do it all the time. We have those
right.
conversations. But
Well,
why do you think that men can't have those?
that's exactly why I did the show, because what I realized was that, especially in me just being a person of color, me being a Latino, I realized that as a man, as a Latino man, you were conditioned from the time that you were very, very young not to show any emotional weakness.
Right.
Even like if you were little and you're a boy and you fell down, the first thing that your parents would say, no llore, que tú un hombre. Like,
Right.
don't cry, you're a man. Like, they would tell you that, and you're like, dude, I'm like 2 years old and that hurt. But
Right.
they
Right.
condition you not to cry, not to show any emotional weakness. And so it becomes a crutch, like it becomes an impairment, because we can't function
Without being able to show
correctly
your
emotionally,
emotion. Right.
because we were taught that we can't express that. We're taught that you have to be a man, and that you have to be strong, and then you have to bottle up. Like, if you look at the older Latino man, he's just like very stiff, very rigid. He doesn't show.
Mm-hmm.
You hear stuff like, I personally never saw my father cry. Like,
Right.
you
It's true.
get
I never saw my father cry either, with one exception, and it was when my grandfather died. Like, when his father died, that was the
right.
first and only time that I had ever seen my dad cry. So you're
But
absolutely right.
but look what it took for you
Right.
to see your father show
Right.
some emotional vulnerability. And
Right.
so in my line of work, not just in the art, I deal with a lot of men, and what I realized is that these men, they had a longing and a yearning to talk about what was going on and their pain. And I started to realize that women weren't the only ones that were broken, that I was feeling the same way too. And that
Mm-hmm.
a lot of men were feeling the same way as well, but we didn't have an outlet. Like, we didn't have a champion to come out and say, yo, it's okay for us to be broken too. This is how we feel. This is how we're viewing these things. And I just didn't know how to get the message across without making it personal somehow. And
Right.
so what I did was I made it personal by implementing some of the stories that I had with my own family. Some of them were like dead on the money. Some of them were really embellished. I mean, that's what writers do.
Right.
But what I wanted to do was I wanted to be able to take the voice of men that felt like they were broken and then put that up on a platform. And then to show the story of how men learn about love and relationships, and how it molds the way they look at women and or relationships, period. Romantic relationships going forward, what their father puts in their head, what their mother puts in their head, what their grandmother puts in their head, what their friends put in their head. Also, I wanted to highlight how a man changes from the first time that he gets hurt, and how that changes the trajectory of how he deals with women moving forward, because that is usually like a big part of how a man acts towards women when he gets older. If you talk to any man, if you have like a real candid and open conversation, and you find out and you ask like why he is the way he is, you could probably trace it not back to, you know, something that happened to him in his childhood, but his first love.
Wow.
And or if he was hurt by that girl or that woman, even if he messed it up, right? But like, you could trace it back.
Yes, because men, the thing is, you guys, it takes a lot for you to own your own shit. So even when you mess up and the woman, for whatever reason, maybe, you know, she leaves you or she gives you a dose of your own medicine, it's just her reacting to your initial action. But you guys somehow flip that and still put that on the woman. And then or you get caught up in your own feelings. And so it's that she hurt you and not what you did to her to make her get to that point.
Absolutely. So, but that's what happens, right? So there's a disconnect because we're taught, and by no means am I making this an excuse for men.
No, you're being real about it though.
You get older. Yeah, you get older and you should know better. And you should know, you know, you should, like you said, you should own your own shit, because it has everything to do with accountability. But what ends up happening is psychologically, like, you're taught that you can't be vulnerable. And then society, your friends will tell you, well, you know, the only thing better than new is old, you know, like you got to just move forward. So instead of like taking the time and dealing with whatever that pain was, you don't even think in terms that way, because you weren't taught to show any emotional vulnerability. So you just jump into the next thing, hoping that the new girl will cover the old
pain
girl's
of the old
pain. Yeah, the pain of the old. And so you acquire, as a man, you acquire all of this baggage, and it breaks you. You just don't know that you've been broken. You don't know. Right. You don't know how to express it. You don't know how to identify it. You can't even fathom to think about opening up to a woman and saying to her, listen, I am broken and I don't know how to fix me, because only you can fix you, right? Like she can't fix you.
Right.
So you don't even know how to say that, because you're too busy thinking, well, she's probably going to be like, you're soft, you're too sensitive, or rejection, right? Maybe I don't want to deal with that.
But then when you carry that like relationship to relationship, at what point do you realize this is not working because my relationships aren't being successful? Clearly there's some work I have to do on myself. How do you begin to heal yourself to the point where you realize that you're broken and you have to do something to kind of heal that brokenness? I mean, or do you never get there? Is this just like a perpetual cycle that men live in this thing of brokenness?
It is a perpetual cycle that they live in, right? Because we've lived in a society where it's told us decade after decade that it's not okay for us to express what we're feeling, that it's a sign of weakness, and a man is not supposed to be weak. And it's really like the epitome of bullshit. I was actually having a conversation about another play that I wrote, that I'm putting back up, and it's about this woman going through a divorce, and I remember the actress that's going to play the part. She said to me, you know, you really tapped into your feminine side. And I said to her, I'm going to have to disagree with you on that. Mm-hmm. I said, I'm a man, but I tapped into a vulnerability that I can identify with. And I listened to what, you know, in my research and listening to it's loosely based on my mother's life. And in listening to my mother and
Right.
watching her experience this pain and watching her go through it and listening to what she was telling me about her pain, it wasn't me tapping into a feminine side. It was me tapping into another human being's vulnerability and me having the openness and the ability to do that without feeling like I was losing a part of my masculinity. Right.
Yeah.
And so like, I don't have to have a feminine side. Like nobody says to a woman, oh, you really tapped into your masculine side. They're like, no, like women, like I'm all woman. And
this is true.
Right. And
yes.
Nobody questions that. But if you see how it is, like if we even show the slightest bit of sensitivity, they make us look out to be a woman. Like, wait,
you're right.
Why I gotta be a chick now? Like why are we a girl now? You know what I'm saying? Why can't I just be a man that's in tune with some type of vulnerability? And that's what I'm talking about. And so with this show, the only way that I knew that I would be able to touch an audience was for me to bear my vulnerability and say, I'm broken and I'm going to talk and I'm going to bear this cross and I'm going to say what every other man doesn't want to say.
Right.
And what was great about that show was that I remember from a marketing standpoint, I was talking to a friend of mine. He was like, you kind of marketing this to men. And that's not going to work. Women are the consumer, And I'm like, I know. I said, but you know what? This is going to be amazing for women too, because they get to hear the truth. And it was. And that's what women are all about.
And
I said, that's what women are all about. They want to hear the truth. So
yes, that's exactly it. That is all women want. Why can't men understand that? You men spend so much time trying to think of the perfect lies or the perfect excuse, not realizing that you are better off just being honest, and dealing with it at that moment than trying to create one lie to then have to create another lie to cover up that lie. And then it's just like this whole mountain of things that are not true. And in the end, it serves no one. And then you just end up looking like a liar. And then we don't respect you for that.
And then when you decide to tell the truth, nobody believes you now.
Right.
She's not going to believe you because you lied too much. And it's funny that you mentioned that, right? Because I was talking to my publicist, and we always get into these conversations, and I always get into me and my team, we always get into conversations about relationships. So this is what the show She Hates Coffee is about, right? And I remember saying to her, I said, it takes so much time for men to finally come into their own and find themselves and find out these truths that work when it comes to women. I said, because we're at a disadvantage, right? Because women are smarter. They find themselves a lot easier, a lot earlier.
Right.
They're just more in tune with themselves. Like, you guys are just like the superior sex, in my opinion. Like, God gave you guys all of the tools to be awesome quick. And
yes, but he also gave us a lot of the burdens that we have to carry in this life.
But with that greatness, he gave y'all all the burdens, right? So it goes hand to hand. And I remember saying to them, and I've said this to a couple of my team members, I said, I wrote She Hates Coffee 12 years ago. And I wrote about a man that goes through this journey where he's hurt and he's trying to figure things out. And he goes through like the worst of the worst. He gets left at the altar. He gets into another, when you see the play, he goes through.
No, we want to know a little bit about the play, right? Because we want to encourage the audience, the people that are listening, to go see it. So you wrote it 12 years ago, right? And then clearly you left that because then you wrote other stuff. You produced other work. Right. I guess back then, what inspired this story? And then after you answer that, like what then I guess re-inspired you to kind of complete it and now put it out, out into the world. February, this is the second run too, because you've already done it. You've done this before. So talk to us about that. Like what inspired it initially and what inspired you to kind of finally put it out?
You're right. This is our second run. I was just in a meeting today. We're already working on our third.
That's right.
Going on tour for real.
That's it. You got to do it.
So 12 years ago, I actually wrote this 13-page argument between two people. It was just two characters, and it was 13 pages, and it was this couple having an argument. And it was my way of trying to figure out why couples argued, why they fought, how they got there. And that's all I wrote. It was like my first attempt at trying to write something that resembled a play or a film or whatever. And I sent it out to a couple of friends of mine, and they were like, yo, this is dope, but we want to know how they got to this argument.
Okay.
And I was like, oh. And so I went back and I started to really get into how they got into this argument. And it went from 2 people to 11 characters.
Wow.
And 104 pages. So, and the fun part is that I actually wrote the ending. That argument is actually the ending of the play. Fun fact. So I literally wrote the ending of the play first, and then I went back and I backtracked and I wrote the whole play. But I knew that it was a huge production. I knew nothing about theater at the time. I knew nothing about film at the time. I didn't know anything. I was just a novice writer. I was a guy that wrote this in his kitchen. And years later, I show this script to a couple of friends of mine. A friend of mine says, listen, I know an off-Broadway director and producer. You should meet them. And I meet them and we do a reading for She Hates Coffee. But then they tell me what the production cost is. And I'm like, wow, this is crazy. I can't do this. And then there's a theater festival that comes up. And I was like, well, I can do this. And I write, and I get inspired to write another play, which was called I Love Them All. And I enter this theater festival and I win the festival. The first time
wow.
I write my second play. First time I ever do anything at last minute. I had never acted before. My director was like, it's too late to cast. You're going to have to do it. It was the first time I ever act, and I act and I win the festival. That play ends up becoming a movie, which is called St. Nicholas, and it's out on Amazon now.
Incredible. Oh, it gives me chills just hearing your story.
And then I keep going and I write another play that is inspired by my mom. You mentioned my mom in The Broken Bachelor. My mother is my biggest inspiration. She is my biggest muse. And I interject my mother in everything that I do, in every work that I do, because the woman is so wise and she's taught me so much.
So does she appear in She Hates Coffee?
She does.
I love it. I love it. So what can the audience expect to see when they come to this show? So it's about a guy named Jaden, right, who gets left at the altar, right? I'm on track. And then I guess what is his story? Like, what does he hope to find by the end of the play?
Well, going back,
without giving away the story, of course.
No, of course. But going back to what we were talking about, why it takes men such a long time, right? Obviously, this is a story about a guy that gets really hurt. It's really painful. And then in the end, he finds himself and he's able to make the right choices, right? And I was telling one of my team members, I said, I wrote a play about a man that finally finds himself and makes the right choices in his life eventually. Yet it wasn't something that I could implement in my own life until a decade or almost 12 years later.
Interesting.
Oh, I wrote it and I put it out, but I wasn't able to implement it in my own life. How crazy is that? But this guy Jaden, what this play is about is just showing you that men feel, and that they get vulnerable, and that they go through pain, and that it's breaking the stereotype and the myth that men don't care about the relationships, that they got ice cold water running through their veins, but the opposite. I present to you these men that are going through something painful and they're making bad choices, but they're trying to make the right choice, but they just don't know how. And they're figuring it out by talking to each other about it, by talking to their women about it. They're going through the steps that need to be gone through in this journey in order to figure it out. And of course, he doesn't have a whole lifetime. I only got a span of 2 hours to show you this in the story, right? But he he he's a guy that has been broken in the worst kind of way. And and I show you him making bad choices.
Right.
He's making them, but then he finds a way to try to make the right one. And that's what the play's about. It's just about men being open about where they're at with love and pain and relationships, and that they're okay with talking about the relationships with their boys about it, with their mom about it. They're okay with expressing how they feel without being judged for it, without his friends judging him for it. And so it's just kind of breaking the stereotypes that men, whether they be Latino, black, or white, or whatever, like, we all go through the same thing. We're all human. We all feel, and we have moments of vulnerability and moments of defeat, but yet we still want to be better. We want to be a good man.
And what I love about your work specifically is that you speak about love and relationships, but from the male perspective. And I think that that's something we don't see or hear enough of. And, you and I were both in this writers community, and I hear and see it a lot from women, but I don't, right. and even from the men that, who are writing, they're not writing about relationships in this way. And I think in that way, you're really, creating like a niche for yourself, to be like that voice, like what you're saying for men, to be okay with showing emotion, to be okay with being vulnerable, to kind of connect with that sensitive part of themselves that we all have, right? Because no one is rock hard solid. The fact that you're born of a woman, that in itself ingrains in you a certain kind of sensitivity and softness that, as you were saying, you're conditioned to kind of block out as you grow, which is why there's that emphasis on just always being strong and hard and not showing emotion, but it's there. And the fact that you're writing about it and you're talking about it and you're creating work that is from the perspective of a man, I think is just, one, it's incredible. And I think it's very necessary, because it helps women also understand men a little bit better, because it's not that we want to be combative all the time, but we have to learn to understand each other. And one of the things that you said is that you learn to listen to women. And I think that women as well have to kind of start learning to listen to men and view you men with a lens that kind of sheds a light on some of the ways you were brought up, and because we know that our childhood and the experiences that we have as children really form who we become as adults. And then once we get there, right, there's a lot of unlearning that has to happen, both, I think, with men and women, as we become older, as we learn more about ourselves, and we're like, wait a minute, a lot of the shit that we learned is BS, and we have to then take the steps, to work through that in our own lives. So I want to ask really quickly, why the title She Hates Coffee? Because I love coffee. And so when I hear that title, it's like, I can't relate. I don't understand it.
Everyone asks me that. Unfortunately, I can't tell you why.
Okay.
What I can tell you is that it's a metaphor. And when you see the show, it's going to come up really quick why the show's called She Hates Coffee. But I give a real, like, basic explanation for it. But there is a deep psychological explanation for it. So what I can tell you is that Jaden is a young Latino business owner that owns a cafe/lounge.
Okay.
That's what I can tell you.
Okay.
And the whole play takes place in his cafe. Now, when you find out why it's called She Hates Coffee, don't accept that as the surface.
Okay, dig deeper.
Dig deeper. because it's a
You're
metaphor.
making people think with this show. You're trying to get them to
Let's
go, deep inside. Like, you're teaching also. It sounds like with this production, because
well,
you're giving the audience more than meets the eye. Really, is what you're saying. Like, it's an opportunity for you to kind of almost do a self-assessment. It sounds like to me. Like when every time I'm told to dig deeper, it's like, okay, if this is what I'm initially believing it to be, for me it's like, okay, why is that my first thought? And then if I think about it, and then I'm like, where does that come from?
right, because what's going to happen is you're going to hear it, and you're going to be like, oh, okay, that's simple, but it's not.
Mm,
It's not. It's masked that way, but there's a meaning behind it, and I just feel like if I'm putting on a show for any amount of time, whether it be an hour or 2 hours, right, and if there's not a teachable moment all throughout this show,
right,
then my job is not. Then my job was in vain, right? Because it's a romantic comedy. It is hilarious. There's some really, really funny people in this. And so a lot of it, you're going to laugh right through. And then what's going to end up happening is that later you're going to be like, oh, that was really fun. Wait a minute. But he
mm,
really just said that. And
right,
so it because so much of it is heavy, the romanticized comedy of it kind of levies it a little bit. It kind of softens it, and it allows you to be like, wow, that was deep, but oh my God, that was funny. Because, who wants to sit in the theater for 2 hours and be like, oh my God, he's beating me over the head. Like, no, you want to
right,
enjoy yourself. It's extremely relatable, and you're going to be able to see your mom, and you're going to be able to see your boy or your gay friend or your
right.
homegirl in the play. Like, you're gonna sit there and you're gonna say, yo, I had this conversation.
So let me
Or
ask you,
you know
this, because you are also an actor. Why didn't you play the lead role in this show?
because it was never part of my vision. And when I wrote it, I never had even thought about acting.
Hmm.
um, I didn't start acting till 2012, 2013, and I wrote this in 2007. So
Okay.
I had never ever thought about acting. And I wanted to stick to what my vision was, and my vision wasn't to be the lead actor and kind of get all that, those accolades. My vision was to put the artwork out and to push people of color forward in
Right.
theater,
Right.
especially in the Latino community, because we are the least represented in theater. And so part of my dream was to push other Latinos and African Americans and anybody of color forward in theater as much as I could.
Right. So
It wasn't about it making it about me.
is that something that you pay particular attention to, like when you're casting your shows, or like when you're writing, these works? Are you writing for like brown and black people?
I am, but
Okay.
I but also as a man that is a purist when it comes to the art. If you come into my audition room and you killed it, then you killed it.
Right.
We have the cast is diverse. It's not an all Latino cast. We have Latinos, we have African Americans, and we have white people in my cast. So I have two white actors in my cast. I have Dominicans, I have Puerto Ricans, I have blacks, I have whites. I have a little bit of everything,
Right.
because at the end of the day, what you want is the art as well to be pure, right? So
Yes.
for me to just be for me to just say, well, I'm just gonna focus on this set group, is kind of what they've done to us all our life,
Right.
you know? And so I wanted to be inclusive, and I wanted to focus on my people, but I also wanted to give anybody and anyone the opportunity to get on a stage and shine if they were right for the part.
That makes
So,
sense.
I mean, I could have originally been looking for a Latino or Latino, but if this white guy or this black guy or this, this African American woman or this, whatever, if they were the best thing for the part, then that's what I'm going to go for, because it will not reach and touch people the right way if I'm only looking at it one dimensionally.
Right. I mean, and I guess when we're talking about this kind of subject matter that has to do with relationships and love, I mean, that is a universal theme. It's not, just specific to one.
It's not specific to just Latinos
Right.
or white people or African American. Like, it's not specific. Like, the same pain that a Dominican man or woman goes through is the same pain a Puerto Rican man or woman goes through, the same pain a man,
Right.
Indian man or woman go through
Right.
is the same pain. Like, we all have the same story. We just look different.
Right.
Like, we literally have, when you come see this show, everybody's different in this audience and everybody's going through the same thing. Everybody's had that same argument. Everybody's had that same laughter. Everybody's had that same pain. Like, love is universal. It's not only inclusive to one type of people. And yes, I'm trying to push my people forward, but at the same time, I have to be pure to the art, right? And I have to go with what my heart tells me.
Right.
And
so when it gets when it gets tough, right? Because anyone in the arts, like, we're gonna hear the word no a lot. There are gonna be times where people won't show up when we expect them to. When things get tough, how do you stay motivated? What keeps you going? What keeps you like on course and saying, you know what, it doesn't matter that I'm going through this. I'm going to keep pushing forward. How do you stay motivated?
Wow. Most times I don't know.
That's a real answer.
Nancy, listen, we know each other.
It's necessary because, and the reason why I ask you this is because this show, we talk a lot about empowerment, about purpose, about following our dreams. And one thing that I want to make really clear to my audience is that sometimes we don't know, right? Sometimes it's hard to stay motivated, but I know that for me, it's always the love of what I'm doing that kind of keeps me going, even when I feel like giving up, even when I'm like, damn, I don't know if I could keep going. It's always the love that ultimately says, you know what, you have to keep going. And the fact that you said you don't know sometimes, that's a real thing. Sometimes we don't know.
Yeah, sometimes you don't know. But you know what? Like, one of the things that I've learned about love and human beings is that we're these sensorial beings, right? And so if we looked at love like it was just this feeling, then we'd be really screwed, because some days you just don't feel it.
Right.
Like, you can be with a partner, you love them to death, but like sometimes people are like, yo, I really want to punch you in the face. Like, I can't stand you right now. Like, get out of my, so it's not that feeling that keeps you in the relationship, right? Sometimes your kids do that to you. You're looking like, yo, I will
it's true.
kick you in the face. I would drop kick you right now if you don't get away from me. Like, that's not what keeps you going.
Right.
You really love this person, but you can't, and that's the same thing with the art. Sometimes I am overwhelmed, right? In with this production and with all of the stuff that I do, and I'm like overwhelmed. But then I say to myself, like, yo, hey, look at all these people that have bought into your vision. Look at them working. Look at how they support you. Look at how they got your back. Like, so you just gonna give up because you're not feeling it today? And then you realize that what you're doing is greater than you.
Yes.
It's great. It's greater than me.
Yes.
So I don't feel like getting up and working on this. I don't feel like doing X, Y, and Z. I don't feel like, I looked at my calendar this morning. I was like, oh my God, bro, are you serious right now? Like, you don't have 1 second to yourself.
I know that feeling. I know it too well.
But, and even like I had an impromptu meeting on top of it. And I was like, wow, you fit something else. And then I was like, I'm at the meeting, like, yo, I gotta go because I gotta be on the radio, because I got a podcast I gotta go do.
Right.
And I'm sitting in front of this laptop, like trying to figure out the thing, and I'm like, okay,
you got
like
it. Though.
All of this, I got it though. I'm like, what people don't know about me is that, like, I'm so technically
challenged.
Challenged. So I'm a real old man when it comes to that. So I realize that when I feel like that, all of this is greater than you. Like, you're touching people, you're affecting people, and I'll say this. And one of the things that I always remember is when I was done one night, one of the shows that I performed for the Broken Bachelor, I remember this woman coming up to me after the show, and she said, AR, I just broke up with my fiance 3 weeks ago. And now I have to call him. And I said, why? And she just said, because you made me realize tonight that I never asked him how he felt and if he was hurt. I just assumed that he wasn't, and that I was the only one going through it in the relationship, that I was the only one in pain, that I was the only one hurt, and that he was chilling. But as I'm watching your show, I'm replaying our last few conversations and arguments. I'm replaying the last conversation we had when I broke up with him. And I realized I never even asked or thought to ask or even wanted to hear how he felt.
Wow. That's powerful.
So now I have to call him back and ask him how he feels about all of this and what's going on. And then she reaches out to me like 3 months later and she tells me that they got married.
Oh my gosh, how beautiful is that? Look at that. Your work is bringing relationships back together. That's amazing.
I was like, if I could only do the same for me. And I'm like, I'm like, okay, well, but, and to be honest with you, at that moment when I was doing The Broken Bachelor, like I was at my most broken in my own personal life. Like I was in my most darkest place ever that I had ever been in my life.
Right.
And many of those times when I'm tired and I don't know why I'm doing what I'm doing and why I keep doing what I'm doing, I remember that conversation with that woman.
That's amazing.
And I remember that, you don't know how you're going to affect people. So just even if nobody ever tells me again, you just don't know.
Right.
I just got lucky and had the opportunity that she shared that with me.
Right.
But you just don't know. You just don't know.
And so
I guess that's what keeps me going.
And I think that's an excellent response. And hearing you say that, I feel the same way. When you think about the people that kind of depend on your work, people do get invested in you and what you're doing. And so, yeah, if you let them down, it's like, it's almost like everything that you have been saying you're about, it's almost like a lie. Right? Because if you can give up on it so easily, you're letting down so many people that have supported you in your work all of these years. So I think that was an excellent answer. When it's all said and done, though, what do you want your legacy to be? Like, how do you want to be remembered?
I actually been thinking about that a lot. And I think I want to be remembered as a father first, and as a son, and as a man that learned how to tell the truth and put it out.
I love that.
Because it took me a long time to learn how to tell the truth. And this is just me being like really freaking candid and me really being honest about.
Yes.
Like it took me a long time. I'm in my 40s and it took for me to get to this place to sit across from another human being and be completely honest, especially when it comes to a woman, right? Because what I learned was I have to tell you the truth so that I don't hurt you. And more importantly, so I don't hurt me.
Right.
And I mean, it sounds almost kind of selfish, but if you don't learn how to take care of you, you won't ever value anyone else.
That is
right. So
how
could I ever care about how I end up hurting you if I don't care about not hurting me? Like I just don't care. I'll hurt myself just to be able to be comfortable. And so I think that's it. Just being a father, being a son, and just being remembered as a man, as a writer, as an artist that learned how to tell the truth and put it out there.
I love that. So how can people get tickets to She Hates Coffee? First, let them know the dates, the location, and then how they can purchase tickets.
Well, you can go to shehatescoffee.com and all of the info is there, but the show is going up February 8th, 9th, and 10th at the Cumble Theater in Long Island University. It's right across the street from Junior's, where they sell that famous cheesecake.
Very convenient location,
very
guys.
Convenient.
Right over the Brooklyn Bridge. There's like every single train that goes there and stops there. So there's no excuse not to go.
downtown Brooklyn where everything is happening. You go to shehatescoffee.com. You can get all of the info. You can buy tickets. You can buy merchandise. Come to the show. It's an amazing, funny show. We have, one of the things that I also love about making relationships in this industry, like I always have like people that come out, and I was so blessed with certain people that came out in this last show. I've been out and about, and some really cool people are going to show up to this show. So I'm really happy about that. But it's going to be a great time, and it's like the week right before Valentine's. So fellas, if you're looking for, something to take your lady to, this is the perfect opportunity.
And if you just started dating, this is a good way to impress women, because we like the arts. We like to go to plays.
Yeah.
It makes you seem like you're really cultured. Even if you don't know what you're talking about, just show up, and she'll be impressed.
Smarten up, brother.
Yes.
Smarten up, brother. Buy tickets to an off-Broadway show. I mean, tell her you know me.
Yeah, and ladies, come out. You can make it a girls' night. You don't need to have a boo. You could, gather up your girls and come out and make it a ladies' night out. Bring your boyfriends, leave them home. Bring your cousins, your sisters, bring your mothers, everybody.
Bring your mother.
Everybody.
Your mother.
And I will be there as well. Of course, I'll be in the house supporting you, because I just believe in everything that you're doing. I can't wait till you really blow up, because you're going to. We always have these conversations.
Me and you, we always,
And I don't.
We're gonna be the Latino version of Oprah and Tyler.
Yes, we are. You already know. You already know. And I'm saying, my audience knows I don't put my name behind a lot of things, because you have to be careful, because everybody don't have your same work ethic, but AR does, and he puts in the work, and he has been doing it for years, and his stuff is phenomenal. So not only is he doing the work, it's great. So you're definitely going to get your money's worth. But I don't want to keep you any longer. I know it's a Sunday night, and you've already given me way more time than I told you. But thank you so much for being here. And yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait for the next production. I will be there in the building February 8th. And just much success to you. Continued success, because you're on the way up.
Same to you, love. Same to you. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, honey. Have a good night.
You too.